Today, we're going to be talking about the best video settings when filming real estate. If you're new to my channel, my name's Kyle Akochi, and I've been shooting real estate for 6 years, and it is the bulk of my video and photography business. And real quick, before we get into it, please consider subscribing. So number one, let's talk about frame rate and video quality. So I always shoot in 60 frames per second, as when you edit, you can slow this down 50% and get buttery smooth footage, and it always looks great. And I always shoot in 4K, as this allows me room in editing as well when I'm zooming in and zooming out. So number two, let's talk about color profile and ISO. Color profile, in my case, I shoot in C-Log 3, and the reason I put that together with ISO is because when you're in log profile, you need to know what the best ISO setting is. So C-Log 3, the base ISO is 800. This is where you're going to get the best image quality with the least amount of grain in your image. So that's C-Log 3. If you're shooting on C-Log, for example, the base ISO is 400, so know where that is. Obviously, you're not going to always be able to shoot at the base ISO at 800. So what I suggest is always doing increments of full stops. So going from increment 8 base ISO of 800 to 1600, then 3200, 6400, etc. If you do shoot in those increments in between those full stops, that's when more grain tends to be introduced into the image. So I highly suggest when you're setting up your camera to only set it up to full stops of the ISO. That way you don't accidentally shoot at an ISO in between 800 and 1600. Now let's talk about number three, which is shutter speed. So since we are shooting in 60 frames per second, we're going to want to shoot in double our frame rate. So in this case, 1/125 is what most cameras will give you. Yes, that is a great rule to stand by. However, sometimes you're not always going to be able to shoot at 1/125, and I'm not a huge stickler for always throwing on an ND filter whenever it's too bright out. So in my case, if it is too bright out, there are scenarios when I do crank the shutter and help out the exposure by raising the shutter speed. Personally, I don't think cranking your shutter speed is going to be super detrimental to your footage, especially in a day and age where most of our media is going on social media. Number four, aperture. So in real estate, I do highly suggest getting a lens that has a lower aperture. So for all my wide shots, I have a 15 to 35 millimeter lens down to f2.8. This is going to be a lifesaver, especially in real estate. You're 100% going to come across rooms that are too dark to shoot in. So having that flexibility of stopping down to 2.8 is definitely going to save you. That being said, on wider shots and exterior shots, when you don't need to necessarily have the lowest f-stop, I typically try to shoot wide shots between f4 and f5. As long as I have enough light and I can bump the ISO up to maybe 3200 without sacrificing too much grain in the footage. That being said, there are certain times when I think using a low f-stop, such as the 2.8, or on my 50 millimeter lens, it goes down to 1.4, or my 135 millimeter lens goes down to 1.8. I think this is really great to use in real estate when you're trying to get detail shots and you're playing with foreground and background. So in those wide shots, you're not really playing with foreground and background too much, but with these detail shots, that's when you get the blurry effect of the lower f-stop, when the foreground is blurry and the background is what you're trying to focus on. Number five is exposure. So let's go back to when I talked about shooting in C-Log 3. Now, what's important to know about shooting in log profile is that you're going to want to overexpose your image by a little bit. So in my case, when shooting in C-Log 3, I always try to expose by 2 stops. So you can actually see this on your camera down at the bottom. There's a little exposure meter. So whenever I'm shooting in real estate, wherever I'm at in the room, I make sure that that part of the room is at least 2 stops over. It's easier to bring your highlights and shadows down than it is to bring them up. If you do underexpose and bring the shadows up, you're going to introduce way too much grain into the video. So it's easier to recover the highlights by overexposing a little bit than it is to underexpose. So last but not least, number 6 is focus. So I always set my camera to manual focus. The reason being is you don't want it accidentally focus hunting if you are in autofocus mode. If the focus point is jumping around, that can ruin your shot. So manually focus your shot every time before you shoot and you'll be good to go. That's all the settings that I use when I'm shooting real estate. So let me know if you guys have any questions or if I missed anything, and I will see you in the next one.